Right. Not a smooth process at all, but we're here. We're getting dialed in. It's just gonna be a quick stream. It's a busy day, so get centered. Wrong way. Here we are. Just getting situated here. We're gonna dial in a second and get the stream tweeted out. Oh man, what a day. What a day. Day in the life. Let's see if this is even live. I'm not even sure. So you usually don't use this device. Let's see. There we go. Okay. Just getting situated. Hope everyone's doing well. I just want to talk real quick because I got some ideas and just thoughts popping up in my mind upon this earned release. I don't know why. Well, let me put this sideways. Retouch on. Interesting. Highlight saved. Didn't mean to do that. Green screen. What the heck? Oh. How do I take that off? Okay. I'm streaming from an iPad right now. Oh my god. Why am I not centered either? This should be just technical difficulties, no worries. All right, who cares? Let's just start talking. Thanks for being here, whether you're watching live, watching this back. The sun is shining, the vibes are good. So I'm gonna do a quick stream outside today, right? Because I'm like, you know what? I like the stock. And what a time. What a time. What was I just saying yesterday, those of you that were watching the stream? Oh, I don't think they'll raise more capital until they use the entire convertible note offering that they previously did to raise capital. And yet, here we are, another convertible note offering, right? Oh my God. Wait, it's driving me crazy. Why am I not saying? The device is to my left. Okay, I guess it's where the camera is. Anyways, what a journey this is with this stock, right? I feel like I say that a lot, but there's ups and downs, lefts and right. And it's like every time you think you kind of got it figured out, or at least I feel this way, you don't, right? You just don't. And that's just the way she goes. But really, to me, what this is clearly identifying, of course, everyone wants to like mow their lawn and birds want to chirp as soon as I start out here, but this signifies to me that the company is being very clear. They're saying, we're going to raise capital at a 0% interest rate through convertible note offerings and become a holding company. And I saw some people saying, oh, well, you know, this is obvious. It was always obvious they were going to do this, right? But in doing the second offering, if you look at the specifics of like what the proceeds are to be used for, and you compare it for this new offering versus the last one, they added an extra line that said, I have it on my laptop on the side here. Pull it down. It says proceeds. I want to read the exact line. Grabbing it. GameStop intends to use the net proceeds from the offering for general corporate purposes, including making investments in a manner consistent with GameStop's investment policy and potential acquisition. So some are saying, oh, well, you know, we always had that language in the investment policy or in the earnings reports, potential for acquisitions, but the last note didn't specifically say acquisitions. And also when you look closely at the investment policy, it does say that they could buy into public companies. So they don't necessarily have to buy out another company entirely. They could go buy into Apple or Google or Nvidia or whatever company they see fit that they feel like they should acquire some shares in. And in doing that, they would hold that stock or multiple stocks essentially on their balance sheet. So they have that capability. And the reason I thought originally, you know, they wouldn't raise extra capital until they spend that full 1.5 billion is I really felt like they're mostly doing Bitcoin, getting ready for the next move. And then they want to use up that capital first, right? And really maybe just build a solid Bitcoin foundation. But now, as I see this next offering come out, and as I was also kind of mentioning yesterday on the stream, letting the dust settle, kind of digest, gain some understanding, think on it a little bit. And my current thought process is that Ryan Cohen and the board, let's see, Johnson's touch on the last day. I told you I think a share offer was coming. John, you're right, my friend. Thanks for coming back. I appreciate it. Listen, you said possible by the end of the year. You're not wrong, John. You're not wrong. I did say I thought it'd be more towards the end of the year. And boy, yeah, was I wrong. It came right around the corner, right? Gonna make sure this iPad doesn't fall over. This wind is coming out of nowhere now. But really, my new thought process is, right? And keep in mind, I make mistakes. I'm a guy on the internet just like everyone else. So I'm going to just keep evolving how I think, and my ideas will change as new information comes out. But now my thought process is Ryan Cohen. Thanks, John. Appreciate it. Ryan Cohen and the board has realized, wait a minute, we can, if we just buy some Bitcoin, not even like a ton, we can raise capital. We can borrow money in the form of convertible notes at a 0% rate. This note is now due 2032 in terms of its maturity, so even farther out than the last one. So they really have lots of time to utilize this capital and wait for the share price to get higher, for the conversion rate or the conversion terms to be met, which, by the way, we won't know the exact conversion terms until this is finalized. But if it's anything like the last one, there's a lot of demand for the last one, right? And it seems like any company right now that's issuing convertible notes to maybe even buy Bitcoin is getting capital fairly easily. So I feel like they're realizing in real time, like, wait a minute, we can keep raising capital, stack it up the balance sheet, start acquiring different things, including some Bitcoin. I still think they're going to buy more Bitcoin. Exactly when, I'm not sure. But also, if we're even remotely in the realm of Bitcoin, then, hey, we can actually raise capital essentially risk-free, right? Essentially, obviously, it's not that simple. They have to either pay back in cash or shares when the conversion terms are met. And, if it gets to 2032, stock price never even meets the conversion terms, then they would owe them the cash back, right? But guess what? They never paid interest on it. They could earn interest on their cash the whole time. I don't think, that's the best play. I see the idea floating around out there of like raising the floor, which I kind of feel like that's what they're doing, but I don't think they're just going to do Bitcoin. And I feel like this offering really solidifies that. I've kind of been thinking that. People have been speculating upon that. But I feel like this offering really solidifies that, hey, we're more than just a Bitcoin treasury company or a company that's selling PSA cards and video games and just, what the legacy business is. So overall, I feel like they're going to take their time, right? GameStop's never in a rush. They're like, all right, if there are opportunities in there, we're not going to jump into it. But they can earn a lot of interest for the time being. And keep in mind, they're borrowing at a 0% rate, and then they can earn at like a 4.5% rate approximately at this given point in time. And then they say, okay, well, AMD is undervalued, NVIDIA is undervalued, Apple's undervalued, Google's undervalued. Let's go buy into some shares of that company and put it on our balance sheet. Or, hey, let's go buy out this other company where we feel like it would be a nice fit under the GameStop umbrella. And I really think ultimately one day it's going to be like GameStop, Bitcoin holding, and then another company, and maybe another company, right? And then another, and maybe that's not whole companies, that's shares of companies, right? But ultimately, like, what GameStop is, or how the average person views GameStop, will become just one part of what they're doing. And they have like an overarching like GME holding company, right? Or GameStop holding company, and then it's actual GameStop stores underneath, right? Something to that extent. We're gonna see how it plays out in real time, right? And there's still a lot to be determined. It's still like, okay, well, what are they going to do? But if they can keep borrowing money, essentially risk-free, why would they not, right? And you might think, oh, well, yesterday you're saying there's not going to be another offering. But I feel like as I've digested the information and thought about it some more, and now that it has, in fact, happened, the new offering, okay, I see where they're coming from. And also, what did Ryan Cohen retweet this afternoon? It's like, was Ryan Cohen a dumbass or something? And he literally retweeted it, right? It's just a random account with like the roaring kitty from his last live stream thing on there. Like, so random, right? But I definitely want to see what you guys are saying in the chat. I'm gonna pull up my phone on the side here and drop a like if you're enjoying. I hope I'm entertaining you today. But like magic, the after hours drop, LOL. How many times did I see this? Yes, sir. I'd rather be skiing, right? Fully expected to, but I figured it'd be that. Hello, Tetra, and there's a rumor that GME just acquired PSA cards. Anton, I didn't see that yet. I appreciate you bringing it to my attention. It's possible, right? So PSA is owned by a parent company called Collectors, and Nat Turner, who is on the board of directors of GameStop, is the CEO of Collectors, right? So he would have close ties. I think that'd be pretty exciting, to be honest. But I don't know. I just feel like from their standpoint, why would they want to do that, right? What's in it for them merging with GameStop? But I don't think it's entirely impossible. I will say that. Just a few minutes ago, the link of PSA cards redirected to GME. It happened in Europe. I tested Indeed, it changed, then it changed back. Someone changed the website arrow. Interesting, Anton. No, that's interesting. Thank you. I appreciate the insight. We'll have to see. Let's see. Skiing said magically. I'm just gonna call you Ski. I think I should call you Ski, bro. Saying I'd rather be Ski each time is taking a little too much of breath. But Ski says magically I rolled my last June options for further out today. Got lucky. Nice. GameStop equals a capital raising behemoth. Behemoth. I'm totally butchering that word, but behemoth. That's what it is. But yeah, exactly. And that's the whole thing. Everyone's still like, well, they're just holding cash. They're just holding cash, right? But that's where the opportunity lies. And I get the idea of, okay, well, cash is losing purchasing power over time because the United States government, doesn't matter how United States government, the Federal Reserve always prints money. And it doesn't matter who the officials are in government, they're always going to print more money over time. But if they're at least holding some Bitcoin, they're essentially hedging against the dollar losing purchasing power over time. That's how I see it, at least. But I like that they're not going as a pure Bitcoin treasury play. I just don't see that being the case. But I do like the idea of them continuing to acquire Bitcoin. Why did GME tank? This message is for you. Thank you. Because convertible note offering means, in theory, more shares are offered, right? But we don't even know that for sure, because let's say the conversion terms are met. Just take the last note, for example. Stock floats around in the 40s for several weeks, down the line, whether it's next year, next week, next month, whatever. It floats in that price range. The conversion terms are met. So then the holders of those convertible notes can say, okay, GameStop, we're converting. And then GameStop gets to say, okay, are we going to pay you back in cash, shares, or a combination of both? So when you look at the 10Q filing that just came out yesterday, you can see there's shares outstanding, and then there's shares outstanding accounting for the shares, the notes, if they were converted into shares, right? And that's why you'll see a difference between GAAP and non-GAAP EPS right now. It was only like 1 penny yesterday, but that gap will theoretically widen if they continue to offer convertible notes. No problem calling me Ski. All right, sounds good, man. Anyone else picking up puts for pennies early this week? Pro Styles, hey, listen, man. Maybe I'll make some money. Maybe he'll not make some money, right? You never know with some options. Dude is losing his hair too. Anonymous, bro, I know. It's really a shame. It runs in the family, unfortunately. I'm really hoping I don't go bald. My dad, uncles are bald. So it's not looking good, honestly, but it is what it is. I'll have to live with it, but thanks for being here. What's the bottom price now? Jose? Jose. Thanks for being here. It's hard to say, right? No one ever truly knows what the bottom is, but the idea is that the floor, right, it's raising because if they just continue to have a certain amount of cash per share, essentially can only move down so low, or it can always go lower, right? But then just more and more buyers are incentivized to buy in because they see positive EPS, positive operational cash flow, positive free cash flow. And by the way, I think a very underestimated part of the report yesterday was how much the collectibles category grew. I think it really shows the success that PSA's had at GameStop and really shows that they're able to diversify their business from just the legacy GameStop, how you'd imagine the typical GameStop, right, like a couple of years ago, right, where it's just strictly video games, maybe some plush toys, right? But now it's just more and more trading cards, more and more grading. And overall, that's really diversifying the business. And they have the Switch 2 console cycle coming. Looking out a year or two, you get the new PlayStation, new Xbox is supposed to be coming. So while those are great factors, I think they still needed to really diversify away from just purely video games, just given that a lot of it's online. But there are a lot of people who still want like a physical disc. And I think that's a great thing. I know it's hard question to answer, but is it possible that GME stock price drop below 20 in the coming days, considering buying more at that time? Anton, of course, as you know, I don't know for sure. But honestly, I'd be pretty surprised if it goes back below 20, to be honest with you, because I feel like this offering, just like the last one, it will be proposed and then it'll be priced shortly after. So upon being priced, that, in my opinion, will kind of be the bottom of the near term. If you look at the last offering, at least, that's kind of how it played out. So I expect something kind of similar, but of course, nobody truly knows, right? Because if all of a sudden China and America have more tensions, they came to a trade deal today, right? Or supposedly, but nothing really changed. I didn't read into it too much yet. But if just some general macro issue comes up and the stock's already trending down, that could naturally just push the stock below 20, right? But then I think it'll come back just as fast. Because you have to keep in mind, any stock, when GameStop drops 10% a day, it can just as easily swing up 10% at a future time, right? So anything, and that's any stock in general, right? Good lesson I learned from my grandpa at a young age, just getting involved. And he's like, well, I was like, I was telling him, like, the stock market's been going up so much lately. This is like, I don't know, 15, 16-year-old, maybe when I 17-year-old, whatever I was, like first starting out, he's like, yeah, it's good, but and I'm like, what? He's like, yeah, if it goes up this quick, it could come down just as quick. And then 2018 rolled around. I think that's what it was. We're kind of in a bear market. And he was, oh, that's what I was talking about, right? Not to say that's the case, but just saying, generally speaking, things can come and go. Stocks are volatile. They go up, down, left, right, in circles. It's a wazi, it's a woozy, it's right? In the Wolf of Wall Street, how they say, right? That's just the way it goes. No, highly doubtful. Last offering, the floor was 2073, and this time we were in a better position than a few months ago. Exactly, John, exactly. And if you look at what their EPS was, not considering like the impairment charges, it would have been 17 cents, and they would have been operationally profitable. And this is in Q1. So historically speaking, Q1 is the weakest quarter for them. So really the next few quarters should be even more profitable, I would imagine, especially if they're keeping the cash for the time being. The net margin will get even better. And then also operating margin seems like it's at a point, especially with selling off the Canadian and French businesses, that they're going to be consistently operationally profitable going forward, which is really great because ultimately it's fantastic. They're earning a lot of interest income, but if they do want to utilize this cash, they can't solely rely on that. So the business itself, the way it's operating, right? You have your gross margin, then you have your operating margin and your net margin. So gross margin pushed up to like 35%, if I remember correctly. I want to see that number go towards 40. I think they can continue to push towards that, just making little pivots over time. And that's the whole thing with GameStop, guys. Like, they just continue to pivot little by little and just slowly grind at it, right? And so many people have come and go. People get impatient about what's happening with the company, but they just are slowly grinding forwards, right? Just slowly grinding forwards, doing what they need to do. And overall, they have a lot of cash, so which means they have a lot of possibilities. And again, I think they'll buy more Bitcoin, and I also think they're going to either buy out another company or they're going to buy shares in other stocks. How exactly that shakes out, I couldn't tell you. I don't think anybody truly can. But to me, just their actions, speak louder than words, even though they don't have a lot of words because they tend to keep to themselves. And I understand that's frustrating to people, right? Some people are like, I'm sick of them not telegraphing what their plans are. I want to know what's going on. And it's like, honestly, to anyone that says that, I say, respectfully, maybe it's time for you to move on, because anyone who's holding this stock, I think at this point really is a long-term viewpoint. And I think the board is like, and Ryan Cohen's like, we're not looking for a squeeze like up to 300 and then for it to come crashing down and then that's it. It's over, or 1,000, 2,000, whatever it is, right? However you want to think about it. They're looking at it as like, okay, we want to continue to deliver shareholder value by building up the balance sheet and making acquisitions and purchases and essentially acquiring assets where we see fit that will grow the overall valuation on a long-term basis. And we'll see how that shakes out, right? Because you got to keep in mind, they can make mistakes, they're not perfect. And I definitely understand, where some people are like, oh, well, GameStop shareholders, they idolize Ryan Cohen. Anything he says, anything he does, it's wow. It's amazing, right? And I want to be perfectly clear. I think, you could always provide criticism, right, to Ryan Cohen, or you should never just blindly follow someone. Oh, I love them so much, right? Whether it's myself, any other YouTuber, Ryan Cohen, anyone. But it's got to be logical, right? And when you look at what Ryan Cohen's doing, I think it's really trying to just build up assets on the balance sheet and make GameStop a holding company. And if there's demand for these convertible notes, and you could have the maturity date years and years out, borrow at a 0% rate, why would you not? If you think about it, like this is what I was thinking about on my drive home from work. MicroStrategy's essentially opened the door for this because they've just done this over and over and over and over and over and acquired Bitcoin, right? And then other companies started realizing, okay, well, let's do the same thing because we could borrow at a 0% rate and then put in a Bitcoin treasury company. And I feel like GameStop and Ryan Cohen have figured out like, okay, we could do the same thing, but we don't only have to do Bitcoin, but there's institutions out there, hedge funds out there, big money out there that's willing to give us the money at a 0% rate, but we don't have to use it all on Bitcoin. We could use it on a mixture of things, right? We can stack our cash a little bit higher. We can go buy shares in this. We could go acquire that. We could buy more Bitcoin on a consistent basis. And that's really where the opportunity lies, in the possibilities for GameStop, like the endless possibility to me is what gives them so much upside potential, but also keeps those who don't like the stock and don't like what they're doing betting against it, because like, well, what are they going to do? They're not doing anything. Okay, well, keep betting against it, right? And then the people who believe in it are like, okay, well, I believe in what they're going to do something great. So it really comes down to what they do, right? In the most, if you want to break it down in the most simple way, I feel like I'm just ranting here, but appreciate you being here. Drop a like. Overall, like, it really comes down to what they do, right? If they buy a company, they buy it out, they buy shares in a stock that doesn't do well, like, that will hurt them. But I also, again, just have faith in the management team to make the right decisions and ultimately let it play out over the next few years, right? Or several years, decades, until I see something I don't like. Oh, well, what's your sell point? My sell point is when I see something I don't like and how the company's operating and the way they're going about things. Or if I'm in a situation where I need to sell, right? Because I need the money. But that's what I don't expect myself to be in that situation, because I don't invest more than I can afford to lose. And I know myself, I know my own like limits and like how much I'm trying to go about placing money here or there. And to be clear, like, I'm still buying Bitcoin. I still own other stocks, but I still love GameStop. And that's just how I rock and roll. What can I say? GameStop strategy. Dijon, thanks for being here. Hey, that's what they're saying, right? GameStop stop away. It's a very nice point. Senior convertible loans, zero interest free money, and it really makes the company strong in the long run. Exactly. And I understand, there's people out there, oh, it's a dilution. And I literally told my one friend, I'm like, listen, bud, I'm like, they're just going to keep doing this anytime the price moves up. If you're hoping for a quick move, like, I just don't know when it's going to come, right? But it does come down to, like, what do they do with this cash? But they could also do nothing for the rest of this year. They could just buy a little bit of Bitcoin and that's it, right? But then, hey, if that happens, fine. Accumulate a ton of interest for the time being while they seek out that right opportunity. And you might go, oh, well, how can you trust them to seek out the right opportunity? That's why you have to believe in the management team of the companies you invest in. Most likely GME to do at least one more time before end of the year. I'm expecting GME cash to be anywhere to 10 billion cash by year's end, not including Bitcoin. John, that'd be pretty crazy, man. And yeah, I could see it too. And when I say crazy, I mean good, in a good crazy way, right? Because if you told anybody 5 years ago, hey, GameStop in 5 years is gonna have like 10 billion in cash, 12 billion in cash, whatever it winds up being, right on their balance sheet, they would have said you're crazy. If you told anyone that even a year and a half ago, right, when the stock was at $10, they would have said, what are you talking about? That's not happening, right? But really, MicroStrategy has opened the door for these 0% convertible notes. If they just own any Bitcoin, it seems evident there's institutions out there, big money out there, that's willing to buy the notes and essentially, earn 0% interest, but have the hope that they'll get the shares and ride the success of the company. But keep in mind, GameStop would have the ability, when the conversion terms are met, I'm the buyer, right? I go to GameStop, I say, okay, I'm converting. Then GameStop says, hey, here's some cash back. They could just give them cash back, right? Instead of shares. Or they could do a combination of both. Like, all right, here's a few shares, here's the rest in cash, right? So it's really up to GameStop's discretion. So they just have so much flexibility. Like right now, they have more flexibility than ever before. And then it just comes down to, do you believe in the management team to move in the right direction? And I do. And I understand, some people, got the water bottle shadow right here, but I understand some people are like, oh, I want to know what they're doing. I need to know how they're going about things, right? But if they telegraph their plans, then people just bet against the company harder, right? And it's also not even really like, to me, whether like, oh, I like that they're doing this or I don't like it. It's just, it is what it is. They're not going to telegraph their plans as to what they're doing. And I understand that some people are like, I don't want to be part of that, right? What's that guy, Bitcoin therapist I saw on Twitter? He's like, I don't know what this company's doing. I want out. Fine. That's okay. Nothing against the guy, right? And he's an individual investor. He can do whatever he wants at the end of the day, right? But the point is, it's not for everyone, that style, but they've just, to me, made it like abundantly clear that, hey, don't believe us, just watch. And that's kind of how they're going about things. And all of Wall Street's like, you can't do that. That's not how this game works. And they're like, all right, we're going to do it anyway. And then I understand, though, that if individual investors are like, I don't like that. But respectfully, like, GameStop doesn't care. They're just making it clear, like, hey, this is how we're going about things. And it is what it is, right? And then we'll have to see, we could judge them based on their performance. They've slowly but surely, moved margins up. slowly but surely gotten back to profitability and trimmed out all the excess. And something I was talking about yesterday a little bit was, prior to Ryan Cohen being in charge and the new board members being there, they didn't even have simple retail technology to keep track efficiently of like what's selling where. Is this particular location profitable or unprofitable, right? They had like nothing. It was so underdeveloped, so behind in terms of technology. So they needed time to really like catch up. And I feel like that's why they've really had to slowly but surely kind of grind forwards. And cheers. And some afternoon espresso. See that, Tetron? Do you think that people who purchase the bonds are the shorts? John, I would think so, honestly, right? If I had to guess just at a very base surface level, I feel like it would make sense, right? Or it's people with some kind of exposure to being against GameStop, right? Whether that be a short position or some other complex financial instrument, being like the other counterparty in some way, because this web of financial nonsense that is the financial system that we know and live in is very, very complex, right? So it's hard to say for sure, but I would think to some extent, some of them, yes, because otherwise, why would you want to earn 0%, right? I understand though, even outside of that, it's because you expect that you're going to get the shares and then you get the upside potential. Worst case scenario, you get your money back. But again, GameStop has the flexibility to pay out in cash. But I would imagine anybody buying the bonds is hopeful that they would ultimately get shares at the time of the conversion. And I don't think it's a guarantee that GameStop's going to do cash or a guarantee that they're going to do shares. I think it's really going to depend on where they're at. So let's say the stock price does really well in the second half of the year. The conversion terms get met on the first note. They haven't quite made an acquisition yet. Maybe they bought another 500 million of Bitcoin, but guess what? They still have so much cash. They might be like, you know what? Why do shares for this one? We could just go ahead and pay these note holders back in cash and then go and do another convertible note for like 2033, 2034, right? Or another one, 2032, like this one that we just got. And then say, hey, okay, at that time we'll reevaluate. And then if the terms are met, same sort of deal. Okay, well, should we pay back in cash or shares? It's really when the note holder chooses to convert, they go to GameStop, and then GameStop makes a decision. Hey, here's the shares, here's the cash, or here's a combination of both, right? So again, it's really fully in GameStop's hands how they want to go about things. And in theory, they could even do dividend stocks. I don't think that's necessarily the best move, but it's always a possibility, right? So you can kind of keep that in mind. You might get some upside potential, motorcycle nearby, but nobody truly knows, right? Nobody truly knows. But at the same time, that's the most thrilling and exciting part about what's to potentially happen, is that nobody knows, right? Nobody knows. And there'll be lots of tinfoil out there, right? You got to take it all with a grain of salt. Nobody truly knows until we know. Just like all the earnings numbers that were about to come out. We were expecting this, thinking about that, predicting this, but it all doesn't matter until you actually see what the numbers were. And we saw, hey, they were operationally profitable if you exclude the impairment charges. And their net margin is just getting stronger, and it's only gonna get stronger as they continue to accumulate interest. And people say, oh, well, it's just interest income. But as I think it was Scott said it the other day, profit is profit. At the end of the day, profit is profit. And they can even maybe get to a point where they're just putting the interest into Bitcoin, and then using the cash for other stuff. I'll let the motorcycle pass. So many possibilities, man. So many possibilities. And I'm going to keep covering the whole story, so feel free to subscribe if you're feeling it. And whatever happens, happens, right? I'm with GameStop. I like GameStop. But also, I'm not going to overinvest. I'm not going to stress myself out in terms of, like, I need to put too much in, right? Because that's the thing, too. I think people feel like, sometimes, oh, I got to rush into this option. I got to make quick money this, quick money that. Just slow and steady wins the race, right? Some of the most cliche sayings in the stock market are so true, but still so important to repeat, because even though it's like you could be very aware of them, and I find this for myself too, it's like the slow buck is always better than the fast dollar. Maybe that's the expression, I don't know. But overall, that's just the way she goes, right? You need to just understand that, and just, even like I know it, right? But then still, I naturally think sometimes, is there a quick opportunity to make money here? And I have to catch myself. I'm like, wait, not with GameStop necessarily, right? For example, right, a spot I could have made a trade was when Tesla, Elon's like arguing with Trump on Twitter or whatever, and Tesla stock's getting crushed, and I'm like, but does this really impact Tesla? And do I not think there's gonna be buyers swooping in? I was like, oh, should I play a quick call? But I'm like, nah, I'm not gonna do that. Too risky, right? But I could have picked up a few shares, quickly traded it, right? So there's always a chance. But just as easily, the feud could have got worse. They could have got rid of government spending, EV credits, or whatever could have played out, right? The point is, you just don't know in the short term, right? You just don't know. But it's so easy to think, well, this could happen, right? But then the opposite could easily happen, right? So if I took the trade, believe me, Tesla would have went down a lot more. That's just how it goes, right? That's just how it goes over time. But fits and starts. Where's Kitty now that we need him? Jose, I would argue that we don't need him, to be honest with you. I would be delighted if Roaring Kitty came back. I would have joy in my heart. I would be happy. I would squeeze all the juice of joy out of that lemon. However, when I bought GameStop originally, or I've been holding shares, prior to him just suddenly returning last summer, I never expected him to come back. I was never waiting for him to come back. I think he will at some point, right? He'll just tweet something random. But also think about what the guy has been through. He's been through so much craziness between just starting a YouTube channel, then he lost his job. He had to go on Capitol Hill and testify. And just think about the wild ride that he personally went on. Why would he want, if I were him, I probably would, honestly, just ride off into the sunset, because I wouldn't want to deal with all the craziness, because anything he does is just looked at with an absolute microscope. You don't think there was, I was going to say federal agents, that sounds dramatic, but some form of law enforcement, right, whether it be the SEC or someone else, watching his stream very, very closely, just looking for a very slight slip up to sue him or try and charge him. And that's probably why he just did the one live stream. Just say, hey, I'm around, I'm here, I still like the stock, deuces. That's basically what he did, if you think about it, right? Remember, it was also all hyped up, and then boom, that day comes, stock's down 35%, right? 40% or something crazy. And it was just classic GameStop, just classic GameStop. Up on the hype, down on the news, right? So to speak. I guess it's not technically news, but I think you get the point there. Welcome, dog, watching GME price drop. Thanks for your update. Do you think the Bitcoin price cost basis is, what do you think the Bitcoin price cost basis is? Fits and starts, thanks for being here. Thanks for popping in. Drop a like, everyone. But I feel like the Bitcoin cost basis is probably near the high, right? 105,000, 100,000 approximately, right? My guess is they bought right before the Bitcoin conference, and I've been thinking, like, when did they actually buy, right? We know it was between, like, roughly May 3rd, and it said, like, June something, or, like, up until when the report came out. But we know if they filed by the day of the Bitcoin conference, which was, like, May 23rd, if I'm not mistaken, maybe it was May 28th. But we know the buy was between May 3rd and whenever the Bitcoin conference was. So it was about in that 3 or 4 week span. And I'm pretty sure Bitcoin in that range, the lowest price it was like 90,000. So like at the absolute lowest, their cost base could be 9,000. Maybe it's even 100, maybe even it's close to 110, right? But if they have a long-term viewpoint for holding Bitcoin, as I believe they will, and I think most Bitcoiners do, almost all, I mean, of course, there's always going to be traders, right? But if they have a long-term viewpoint, who cares if they're buying the top? When you see what's happening with the US dollar, and that it's just endlessly created, right? And the big, beautiful, grand, fantastic, super duper bill, or whatever the heck it's called, is coming out, that's only going to lead to a deeper deficit for the country. And even if they found a way to like decrease spending like an insane amount and cut the deficit, guess what? Economy probably crashes. And then if that happens, they collect a lot less taxes, the government, and then the deficit is huge anyway. So the point is, the United States of America is always going to print money over time. And that's ultimately what gives Bitcoin value to me, because the dollar, right, is essentially, it's not, I'm not going to say it's an exponential curve in terms of the rate it's being created, but it's just up, faster and faster creation rate, right? Whereas Bitcoin, the rate of creation decreases with each halving. Meanwhile, the rate of creation of the dollar continues to increase. And you might say, well, then why are they holding all this cash? Because this is also happening fairly quickly, right, with the cash. You know, it all depends on your scale in terms of relative to time. But I feel like it's not happening where it's like, if they don't spend the cash for a year, you know, they're going to lose so much purchasing power. I feel like it's more so happening over like when you zoom out and look at several years. And then by GameStop acquiring some Bitcoin, in my opinion, they're essentially hedging against the fact that the dollar is losing purchasing power. So they can continue to accumulate some Bitcoin as they stack some cash. And by the way, borrow at a 0% rate to kind of hedge against the losing value of the dollars. But then also it allows them to not rush to overpay for a stock if they want to buy shares in it, overpay for an acquisition. So it gives them, again, full flexibility. And in my opinion, if I had to guess, I think Ryan Cohen's been buying Bitcoin as well, because part of the investment policy states that, board members and Ryan Cohen himself have the ability to buy the same things that the policy invests in. So I would imagine if he talked to Saylor, he gained understanding of Bitcoin, and he put Bitcoin on GameStop's balance sheet. Granted, it's not his only his decision. It's also Larry Chang and the other board members, and Jim Grube. Those are really the big three, I would say. Ultimately, I feel like he's probably buying Bitcoin too, because he sees what's happening. And I know for myself, doesn't matter how much GameStop buys Bitcoin, I'm still going to keep dollar cost averaging. I just do my daily buys through the Strike app. Just buy each time I get paid, throw a chunk of money in there, auto buys daily at noon. Don't even have to think about it, and just slowly move it to my cold wallet. Let's see. Like the shades, keep it real later. Dijon, thanks, bro. Take care. Richard Newton thinks it was bought in early second quarters. Doesn't need to be reported yet. Maybe fits and starts. That's possible, right? I would think so. Well, yeah, it has to be, right? Because if the buy was in May in any fashion, that was Q2, right? Because Q1 is February, March, April. So I definitely think the buy was in Q2. So will we get cost basis next quarter? I'd like to think so, but at the same time, we're going to see the value of Bitcoin. And there's also a new accounting rule, which I've been putting it off, but I really got to read into it more. That's basically going to mean when Bitcoin appreciates in value, it's going to show up on the bottom line because of the new accounting standards. So we're going to have to kind of dig into that. When I say we, I mean mostly me, but I encourage everyone else to do the same. So we're also going to have to, we as individuals, right? We'll have to understand how that's going to impact future reports. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Let's see, billionaire. Varsky's a billionaire, trust it, man. Why too? Very simply put, but very true. When does GME second quarter EPS usually happen? So PFA, it'll be about 3 months from now. So if we just got the report, it's early June, July, August, September. So should be around this date in September, right? So probably the second or third week, probably the second week of September, approximately, right? It could be September 9th, 13th, 14th, somewhere in that ballpark, right? If you look back at the past reports. And then from there, we'll see how operationally profitable are they. I believe they will be operationally profitable again. I believe the net profit will get even bigger, especially after raising this capital now. And also, I was saying it in the beginning, but if anyone missed it, I expect this offering to have a lot of demand. The last one had a lot of demand. It was offered and then priced very quickly. So I expect this one to be priced by the end of next week at the absolute latest, but I think a lot sooner than that. And by the way, the last offering was upsized, right? The offering was initially for 1.3, and then once it was priced and finalized, it actually went up to 1.5, right? Because the buyers had the choice to upsize an extra 200 million, and they exercised the right to do so. So this one, right, was what, 1.75? I think my laptop died, never mind. Let's see, get the exact numbers. 1.75. Right. Yeah, 1.75, and then they also have the ability to upsize another 250 million. So they could wind up raising 2 billion here. And honestly, I feel like if the last one was upsized and there's similar demand for this one will likely get upsized as well. So we'll have to see how this shakes out. And it's crazy. These are doing 2032. So 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32. These are due in 7 years, right? They have 7 years of full flexibility, right? In theory, but if the conversion terms get met, the holders can come say, hey, time to convert. And then GameStop has the decision. We're paying in cash, we're paying in shares, we're paying in a combination of both. And that's how it'll kind of shake out, to an extent. Economy in Bitcoin will be quite different by early September. Fits and starts. It could be, man. It could be. We'll have to see. We'll have to see how it shakes out. Everyone give him a thumbs up and subscribe to his channels and set up notifications. New videos going live. Jesse, thank you. Do what Jesse said, guys. Jesse said it, not even me. But no, I appreciate that, my friend. Thank you. And man, what a ride, right? Today I was like, I'm just going to relax when I come home. I'm just going to chill. And then towards the end of the workday, it's like, GameStop is doing a new share offering. I'm like, or sorry, not new share offering, convertible note offering. I'm like, what's happening? Or one of my friends texted it to me, and I was like, really? what? Because I was trying to like get ready for the next day of work, and then I was like, all right, I'm distracted. Here we are, but that's all right. Peace, bud. Fitz, take care. Coffee grinds at the bottom there, but it's busy in my house today, so I was like, you know what? Let's just do the stream outside. It's so nice out. I wanted to vibe outside anyway when I got home, so I was like, let's just send the stream outside. Let's just do it outside. But the opportunities are really endless to an extent. To an extent, right? It's not. They can't just go buy penny stocks or do something crazy. But geez, coffee grinds back in my throat. But we'll just have to see how it shakes out, right? Nobody truly knows what's going to happen. Not myself, not anyone else out there. So you ultimately have to have faith in the board and management team to make the right decisions. And if you don't, with any company in general, I honestly don't think you should invest in it. I truly, genuinely believe that. And that's not even just with GameStop, any company in general. But I'm trying to think, anything else I wanted to touch on before I kind of wrap it up? I wish the hockey game was on tonight. That's been such a good series. All the Oilers completely unraveled last game, right? So hopefully they can bounce back. They will bounce back, but Florida just looks so damn good. But I could start talking hockey forever, but I won't do that to you guys. So they're going to have a lot of cash. They're going to have some Bitcoin. I would predict they're going to buy some more Bitcoin throughout this quarter. Maybe we don't find out about it, though, until the Q2 filing. And maybe the last filing was only because they were going to announce it at the Bitcoin conference. So they wanted to disclose it up front earlier that morning. Because keep in mind, if they said they bought between May 3rd and the time of the report, but we know they bought prior to the Bitcoin conference, they didn't file right away, right? So if in theory they bought on like May 5th, they would have had to file within 3 days, right? If it's considered a material event. But what technically is a material event is such a gray area. So we don't even entirely know on that at this time. So I do wonder, could they buy Bitcoin? Could they have already bought Bitcoin like yesterday, for example, or today? And then we don't actually see it until we get the Q2 report. I feel like it's possible. And I want them to buy more Bitcoin, but I don't want them to use all their capital on Bitcoin because, again, I really want them to have this Bitcoin essentially as a hedge against the fact that the dollar losing purchasing power over time, and that gives them ability to not rush to use the cash and overpay for an acquisition or overpay for shares they want to buy at another company, right? So just something to keep in mind. Like, for example, Amazon holds shares in public companies. Like, they own shares in Rivian. Amazon owns shares of AMD now, but they actually got those shares, if I'm not mistaken, through AMD's acquisition of Zscaler. So they essentially got AMD shares because they had shares in the company Zscaler that ultimately AMD bought out. But they haven't sold those AMD shares yet, so they must like what AMD is doing. But just an example of another company that has bought other shares, right? So it's not completely unheard of. And especially when companies like Amazon or NVIDIA, companies get to the size of Amazon or NVIDIA, they start seeing, okay, what are some creative ways we can deploy our capital? And one other alternative asset that I think GameStop technically owns, trading cards, right? I look at the cards I own as an alternative asset on my personal Tetron balance sheet, if you want to call it that, because they will, generally speaking, hold their value and gain value over time. Of course, it's not that plain and simple. It really depends on the cards, but also, they're selling them, but their inventory will hold value better than, like, if, let's say, the new Madden comes out or the new NHL, the new NBA, like, video game, then the next one comes out and they're going to take a loss on the old ones, right? They're just going to sell them for whatever they can, and they're going to get stuck with that kind of bad inventory, so to speak. So yeah, glad I found you. Thanks, bro. Tomorrow meeting, is it after the market? The annual meeting, is it? Wow, I kind of lost track. I'm not even sure. I'll look it up real quick. Let's see. GameStop. Wow, it's already 7:15. Crazy. GameStop. Oh my God, there's so many notifications. Annual meeting. Annual meeting of stockholders. Looks like it is June 12th. Okay, so yeah, that would be tomorrow. Honestly, I'm not expecting anything major. You never truly know what's going to happen, right? With any annual meeting or GameStop, but I don't honestly expect anything super crazy. And it's 10 a.m. Central Time, so what is that, like 11 Eastern, if I'm not mistaken? The meeting is not currently open. saying for the link for tomorrow. But yeah, so the annual meeting is tomorrow. But again, I'm honestly not expecting anything major to come of that. I think maybe they touch on the investment policy a little bit more, right? But it will be one of the rare times when we hear from Ryan Cohen. So we'll hear what he has to say. But yeah, Anton, thanks for being here. Everyone else, thanks for being here. Don't got much else to say. Kind of want to just shakes out. But overall, my thought process is they've realized, hey, we can raise capital with a 0% interest rate. We can borrow money at a 0% interest rate and then have the flexibility to pay back in cash or shares at a later date. We're going to put some of that towards Bitcoin because that's kind of what allows us, the fact that we're buying Bitcoin kind of allows us to borrow at 0%, right? In the sense that there's big money out there willing to give it to us at a 0% rate because part of it's going to Bitcoin. And then from GameStop's perspective, stack a bunch of cash, make an acquisition or buy shares of other companies when they see fit, right? Going with the holding company approach. But you don't have to rush it because guess what? Yeah, sure, cash is a asset that's losing purchasing power because of just the endless printing that takes place over time. But by holding some Bitcoin, you're essentially hedging against that. That's how I see it, at least, right? So it's just kind of this perfect conundrum of opportunity. I feel like that's the best way I can describe it. And I know there's people, I'm sick of waiting. I'm sick of these convertible note offers, this and that. And listen, I gotta be honest, you're probably gonna have to wait a little more. There's probably gonna be more convertible note offerings down the line. But I think they're gonna use the capital efficiently over time. But I can't say that for sure. There's always room for error. You got to realize, the people running the company are human. They're not perfect. You always have to, no matter how much you believe in any one stock or any investment, for me, I absolutely believe in Bitcoin so much as the future of money and just building value over time. But I also understand that no matter how much I personally believe in something, there's always, you have to have the humility to accept that there's always a potential that it doesn't work out, right? And I'm not saying I think Bitcoin or GameStop won't work out, but you have to just keep it real with yourself that there's always a small possibility of some kind that there's an unforeseen circumstance or something you just don't quite understand, right? And that's why you don't invest more than you can afford to lose. And you know your limits, you know yourself, and whether you're investing or trading or just how you want to go about things so that you don't have to lose sleep at night. If you're losing sleep at night over holding GameStop or any individual investment, I think you really got to take a step back and just stack some cash for a while. But of course, I'm not in the business of giving financial advice, so I can't tell you what to do. You got to decide for yourself at the end of the day. But yeah, tomorrow, yes sir. Hopefully we get a GME at $20 a share before next quarterly earnings report. Coffee, thanks for being here. Hope you're doing well, my friend. I feel like there's gonna be a lot of buyers, both individual and institutional, if we get close to 20, to be honest with you. So if that happens, so be it. I welcome it. I'd have no problem with it, but we'll see how it shakes out, man. We'll see how it shakes out. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it here for today. Again, appreciate everyone being here. Feel free to drop a like, subscribe. Hope to see you again. You can follow me on X at Tetron Invest. Don't post too much on there, but I post when I'm going to stream. The schedule changes around. I will be live again on Friday. I'm live every Friday starting around 5. Sometimes it gets closer to 5:15. Just depends when I get home from work. We're kind of recapping the week on GameStop. Doing that weekly from here on out. Been doing it for the past 2 weeks. Going to keep that going. And then whenever there's a day like today, news pops up, I might just pop outside real quick, do another quick stream, and talk the stock. So, again, thanks for being here. Take care, everyone. Take care of yourself, your mind, your body, your physicality, your bank account, your wealth, all of that, right? Slowly but surely. Keep grinding forward, just like GameStop. See you.